Cordkillers Reckoning. The world of entertainment is turned upside down, and we're just trying to find out how to watch what we want, when we want, wherever we want. I'm Tom Merritt. Brian, where's the good stuff?
Oh my gosh, it rains all around us. You know what we got? A lot of horse apples and shenanigans ready to be dissected by the two experts who are responsible, not legally or financially culpable.
Hi, I'm Horse Apples. He's Shenanigans.
Horse apples and shenanigans in the morning. Kook and the racist badger of drive times. What about
I was going
cat?
more with illegal. Like at Horse Apples and Shenanigans, we can defend you.
At Horse Apples and Shenanigans, we get paid. Anyway, look, hi, I'm Brian Brushwood. This is Tom Merritt. We killed cable. Now we're hungry trying to find all the good stuff. And boy, do we have a lot of interesting stuff to dissect.
Oh my, I was excited for this one from the moment I read about it and texted Brian about it. It's time for the supply run.
Supply run, supply run, supply run.
HBO announced it really wanted Brian to have something to sink his teeth into on this week's show. You may have forgotten, you would be forgiven if you had, that HBO operates multiple linear cable channels beyond just HBO. That's right. If you don't stream, if you just get the cable television still, like tens of hundreds of people still do, you can watch HBO 2, HBO Signature, etc., etc. The main flagship channel is just called HBO. But the secondary channels all have second names, and those are all changing. Plus, don't forget HBO runs Cinemax channels. Those are changing as well. Brian, shall we run through the list and you tell me just how great you think each of these name changes is?
Yeah. Okay. By the way, lock in your presuppositions right now, how Brian's going to react to these, but go on.
Okay. So HBO is the only channel that still remains HBO. It's not HBO Max.
So
it's not HBO
at least
Go.
we have that much. HBO
that one's
continues to mean HBO.
Yeah, HBO continues to be Hubbo. HBO 2, which was the second HBO channel, is now HBO Hits.
You know what, Tom? I love it.
Yeah,
because if you ask me what's the difference between HBO 1 and HBO 2, I would be forced as an outside consumer to rely on the heuristic that it must be the second one. And what is the second one? It's usually the less good one. It's the
stuff
copycat.
not good enough for the first one.
It's all the stuff that wasn't good enough for the first one. Now you have HBO and you have HBO Hits. What is HBO Hits? I'll bet it's the same stuff as on HBO, except for nothing that's not awesome. It's refined HBO. So far, big old check mark. That's 1-for-1 improved.
Okay. And by the way, these channel names are used on HBO Max because they have a little linear grid that you can watch and see these channels. So they will apply even if you don't get HBO on cable. HBO Hits. I think I know what you mean. Like that new episode of Last of Us might suck, but HBO Hits, it's only going to show the good episodes.
Well, at that point, you're breaking apart franchises. But like, for example, Hits also conveys a little bit of classic, like old music used to be called oldies, but you don't want to be oldies. So instead you have classic rock, unless you hate classic rock, in which case you call it fossil rock.
Yeah.
I mean, but Hits conveys that these are popular things that have withstood the test of time, and that's why they're on this channel.
Now, HBO Signature has a special place in my heart because they were doing a Sex and the City marathon in 2001 when Eileen and I went on our first date, which was at my house to watch the marathon on HBO Signature.
Wow, straight to second. What? I don't know what base having a lady at your house is.
HBO Signature is now HBO Drama.
Tom, HBO Signature conveyed previously a command performance. It reeked of a little bit of A&E network, arts and entertainment.
Oh, really?
Maybe a bit of Masterpiece Theater and so on.
These are all signature movies.
Exactly, right? Basically, it also conveys a little bit of boringness to it. All of that is fixed with the new name. You know what I expect to see on HBO Drama? Dramas. I'm good. Very clear. Also, no bad baggage with it. Nothing in the weeds. I know many movies that are good dramas, and I bet I can find them on which flavor of HBO? HBO Drama. Am I going to see Entourage on HBO Drama? I doubt it, because it's not drama.
I probably should save this to the end, but I just want to throw it in so we can include it in our calculations. This is a programming problem because previously what you would do with HBO 2 and HBO Signature is put whatever the heck you wanted on it because they were meaningless names. So you were basically saying, we think everybody's going to watch Spider-Man on HBO, but we know not everyone likes superhero movies. So on HBO 2, we'll put a romantic comedy. And then there's probably some people who don't like either one of those. So on HBO Signature, we can rerun The Wire. And now we're keeping more people.
This is a really good example of something I'm very dialed in on these days, Tom, which is little design nudges having big outsized results. Remember, I'm really glad you brought this up. The whole reason for multiple channels was because in the zero-sum game of linear television of the past, if you weren't watching the one thing, that was the only way that you could watch the other thing. So they would intentionally always counter program. So at all times, HBO, the entity, was at all times distributing some flavor that you would like. But now, of course, everything is nonlinear. So now it needs to resort by category and availability.
This is more of a fast channel labeling than it is a cable labeling.
Correct.
But I wonder, given that they still have cable, are they gonna put a romantic comedy on HBO Drama and go like, well, but we kind of were forced to because of the programming grid.
I think eventually they'll do whatever they want, and they'll historically what happens is at first brands mean something, and then for a bunch of reasons they end up degrading the brand, whether it's to make so-and-so happy or to get more runtime or whatever, or to fulfill contractual obligations for X, Y, and Z. So this is right now, this is as good as it gets, Tom. We are being pitched the fantasy of clarity and a brand actually being what it says it's going to be. Yeah. Whether or not it sticks to it, whether or not they deliver it, who knows?
HBO is the home box office. HBO 2 is now HBO Hits. HBO Signature now HBO Drama. And HBO Zone is now HBO Movies.
Yep, this is another win of a play. HBO Zone.
But aren't they all movies?
Well, no, because there's HBO Originals, and especially HBO Zone has enough that it conveys sportsy kind of things. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if maybe some sports documentaries would show up in HBO Zone. I don't know what it used to.
I thought HBO was movies.
Well, yes, but
does this mean this is the channel that won't show you Last of Us or Game of Thrones?
That's what I'm taking it as.
All right.
Again, Tom, they still have lots of time and opportunity to screw this up. And I won't put it past them, because here's one of the crazy things. This is part of the reason I love branding is about the pitch. The story is the deliverable. And so the deliverable, it's the obligation for you to live up to the pitch. And in general, you want to be excellent and deliver. But when it comes to the real estate in other people's minds, you want that to be as pure as possible. And to the extent that you can, for example, the classic example is Coca-Cola changed their flavor and nobody liked it because whether or not it was good or bad, the anxiety of being unsure about what they were going to get when they hit the Coke button is what set them back. And of course, we'll see whether or not they're able to deliver on these.
All right, we're done with the HBO renames. Now the Cinemax renames. MoreMAX is now Cinemax Hits.
Tom?
Yes.
This is a radical departure, because now we're taking an HBO Max thing and we're retrofitting. A lot of people always thought that HBO Max meant HBO and Cinemax. That's not the case. Cinemax was a shuttered brand, essentially, right?
There was still Cinemax, the channel, but then there was MoreMAX, and yeah, they didn't use,
correct.
Yeah.
But now they're dipping into, now they're taking what everybody already thought and just leaning into it, because they owned the Cinemax brand. So MoreMAX being Cinemax Hits, Tom, I love it. I love it because Cinemax.
What's the difference between HBO Hits and Cinemax Hits?
So first of all, HBO has a different flavor than Cinemax.
Okay.
HBO, you think of premium. It's not TV, it's HBO. So
It's
there's
pumpkin
gonna be
spice
some,
latte.
there's going to be some original content, and of course, the biggest box office hits. Cinemax, you usually think of popcorn, a little more of, shall we say, populist
Skinemax, as they used to.
and a bit of the spicy, a little more cleavage,
A little spicy popcorn.
That's correct. So, given that we know what an HBO and we know what an HBO tastes like, and we know what a Cinemax tastes like, and Max is just refined best ofs. So I'm still on board with this.
Action Max is now Cinemax Action.
Tom?
Yeah, all right.
I know exactly what I'm going to get on Cinemax Action. Is going to be popcorn movie hits. I bet Transformers movies are going to be on Cinemax Action channel.
That one made sense to me. It's like, oh, well, this was a place for action movies, and it's still a place for action movies. Here's the last one. 5-Star Max. 5-Star Max is now Cinemax Classics.
Now, this one's interesting because 5-Star Max implied a quality play. Which
kind of like Signature, but less snooty.
Well, and I think that was, if you had associated Max with Cinemax back in the day, then 5-Star Max was a rough name because it implied exceptional quality and also populist popcorn movie. And those two disparate things probably didn't fuse together well. Whereas Cinemax Classics means I'll bet I can see, I don't know, do you remember Firefox with Clint Eastwood? I bet that's on there. I bet Romancing the Stone would be on there. You know, the popcorn movies of cable of yore.
Yeah. So there you go, Brian, in the pocket of big HBO telling us all of these.
Already, look, I am aware. Look, man, I call them like I see them. I see a perfect game. Now,
you
keep in
like
mind,
all of these renames. You didn't dislike any one of them.
I don't like any of these renames, but they are all improvements. They were abject garbage. Now, if you were going to do them right, you would do the heavy lift of establishing new brands and having a consistent product under there. And maybe they would come with the HBO Max service. They would be other members of the Avengers in HBO land. But as far as dealing with what we got, every one of these is an improvement in that they actually mean something. Also, at this point, to be honest, it also kind of is a retcon for moving back to the HBO Max name, the name that everyone loved to begin with. At least all of this kind of makes sense and is consistent.
Yeah, although to your point, MoreMAX Action, let's use Action Max since it's pretty much equivalent. Action Max makes sense in the context of HBO Max. Cinemax Action makes less sense. It still makes sense, but you have to work a little hard to be like, oh, that's the Max, right? So I'm curious on the broader point of these being fast channels. Well, they're not fast channels because they're not ad supported, but they're linear channels within the HBO Max streaming app. Are they necessary? Like, obviously the renaming is positioning itself to make more sense in there, but I've noticed everybody's doing this. Peacock started it, but Paramount Plus has it as well, where you have these linear channels in your apps. I wonder how much it's necessary to do that.
Well, I don't know about necessary, but I can remind people of first principles. The whole reason, the job of brands is to save your brain's calories, or save your brain, the brains of calories from the brains of your audience. So picture 10,000 people about to make a decision of what to do. Think of how many you're going to lose due to choice paralysis. If you have a giant block of text that has to be deciphered by the linguistic portions of your brain, if Broca's area needs to light up, that's too heavy a lift. You've given homework to your customer when they don't want to be doing homework or solving puzzles to understand, to disambiguate between this thing and that thing. It should be at a pure gut level, all, as Daniel Kahneman called it, system one thinking. It should be natural and intuitive. Like, I just know what a Coke is. I know what a Dr. Pepper is. I know what a Sprite is. And I don't have to think of a bunch of words to get there. So given that the goal of brands is to have that core association built in, then what you want is congruency. You want it to be almost like a song where you just feel the flavor of these different things. And what they had, for very good reasons in the past, like we talked about with linear television, if one side of HBO is delivering one flavor, you wanted a counter flavor delivered at the same time. And then because of that kludgy monstrosity they created, they needed to simplify things. That was too much calories before to explain a 5-star Max, Action Max, MoreMAX, HBO2, Signature Zone. That's too much thinking, and you're going to lose a significant number of those clicks out of that 10,000 large audience. So what they're doing is HBO Max, that's already cemented in everyone's mind. Fine, we're going to retcon it as HBO and Cinemax. That's fine. You know those two things. Now, all we're doing is a gentle lift with 3 flavors. We have 3 flavors of Coke, 3 flavors of Pepsi, 3 flavors of HBO. We got hits, dramas, movies. We got hits, Cinemax hits, action, and classics. Few calories, easy to get to the good stuff, which, of course, we're all about. Is the first question we ask is, how do we get to the good stuff? And that's the purpose of establishing a good brand like this.
Now, I opened up HBO Max to see if the names have been changed. And in fact, they have. Channels is a long scroll down the homepage before you get to it. It's not a grid. It's just a list of channels. Like HBO channel has the color purple on as I'm looking at it. And then HBO Hits. And then HBO Drama. Then HBO Comedy, which we didn't notice in here, but HBO Comedy's unchanged. HBO Movies is there. And then CNN Max.
Wait.
Those are all the channels.
Wait, none of the ones that we just talked about?
So HBO Hits, HBO Drama, HBO Movies, HBO Comedy, and CNN Max.
So none of the Cinemax
None of the
names.
Cinemax stuff. That's just for cable, apparently.
Okay, well then that also makes sense.
It makes a little more sense to me, actually. It's like, oh, you're rebranding Cinemax for the group that is more likely to understand what Cinemax means.
What a Cinemax is, yeah. Because if you're native to the HBO Max environment, then you don't have those Cinemax. You're going uphill to explain what a Cinemax is, not riding downhill of riding the recognition.
And you're just not providing those channels in the streaming area. Also, it feels like because they're not a grid and they're so far buried that they're like kind of doing this because they feel like they need to for some reason, but it's not a big priority. Also, CNN Max. I'm sorry.
CNN Max, I don't hate because
if the Cinemax stuff were in there, I would hate it. CNN Max on its own is just funny to me. Like, isn't it just CNN? Like, just call it CNN.
Probably because it's a different feed, right? And
it is
some kind of So in that case, if you just say CNN, then if a particular event is happening and it's on CNN, why is it not on CNN on Mac? You do need a little bit of that. That's a low calorie top spin. You're in the Max environment, seeing Max added to CNN.
It does feel like it's the lesser CNN though. Right. If I go to Disney Plus and I click on ESPN, it just says ESPN, even though it's not all the same things yet. But CNN Max makes it sound like this is the lesser version of CNN and HBO Max.
Well, good thing they didn't do the worst decision, which would be to call it Newsmax.
Tease ahead. We've got a little legal thing around that later in the show. One thing that is infinite, it's not limited by channels, is our love for our patrons.
Yeah, man. You know what? It is infinite. It's like the coast of England. Just when we think we've got it all figured out, we measure a little bit more precisely and we discover that our affection goes even deeper. And it's not just the dollars, but we start with the dollars. Just $1 an episode. That's an original idea that we had, and then Dan Carlin of Hardcore History stole it, used a time machine, and gave it back to himself. It's all in the Schwoodtionary.
A buck a show is what he stole.
That's right. That's right. But
that's what we say.
Now we say it now.
Circles.
If you like getting your news loud, live, and independent, if you like to find out how to watch what you want, when you want, on whatever device you please, then why don't you show some support? Head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers. Just $1 an episode. You'll get early access to the full experience. You'll get exclusive access to the After Talk segment. And most importantly, you will get our ever-increasing love and attention.
Indeed. And now the search party. Now, this story is just, I know everybody's going to agree on it. There's no controversy around it, but a creative specialist at OpenAI named Chad Nelson is working with Vertigo Films and Native Foreign Studio to produce an animated film called Critterz, with a Z, about forest creatures that go on an adventure after strangers disrupt their village. Obviously, he works at OpenAI, so the film will mostly be made with OpenAI's generative models, and they want to debut it at the Cannes Film Festival in May. They can't promise that because they need Cannes to accept it, but they're going to submit it. Humans would voice the characters. Humans would actually draw the sketches of the creatures that the model would then animate. It'll cost $30 million to make, which is a lot for me, but not much for making an animated movie. They say they can make it in 9 months. Usually this kind of thing takes at least 3 years. And they will use all of 30 people to make it. If you've ever watched any movie, the visual effects artists are usually more than 30 people from multiple companies. So 30 people are going to make this, and they will all share in the profits of it, should there be any.
Okay, so I don't know how still currently radioactive the idea of telling stories using LLMs and AI resources is. But what this introduces, what's that?
I said, you don't? You don't know?
Because here there are two moral pulls that pull at independent storytellers or artists of all stripes. So, for example, let's take Scam School. Scam School. I taught magic on the internet. I was part of the vanguard of people who taught magic on the internet. At the time that Scam School came out, it wasn't entirely clear to magicians whether or not this was teaching or exposure. It wasn't clear whether or not YouTube was television or not. Everybody was very sore over the magic secrets exposed masked magician stuff. And so there was a lot of nastiness that got thrown my way. But in the ethical calculus that I had to do is which is the greater moral move for the art. On the one hand, the people who were saying the traditional way is the only way to do magic, nobody should teach magic for free on the internet, they had a case. Now, by the way, intellectual property aside, no piracy of any effects that people owned. We're talking about teaching from the commons, tricks that are 100 years old. The moral calculus, the driver for me to do Scam School, was that I loved magic enough that I didn't want to be part of the protectionist cartel racket of keeping magic only among a small people. The art benefited from more practitioners of it. And more importantly, the very high ethical calculus is the only way when I got started in magic for somebody to learn how to do magic was either had to be wealthy and near a magic shop and you could just buy everything, or you had to go to magic club meetings, at which point a 14-year-old boy is paired off with a 45-year-old man. They go off into a room and the boy is explained the importance of keeping a secret. And all of the terrible things that you would imagine happen, a lot of them happened, right? So there is a moral reason to break apart that restrictive structure. A similar moment is happening morally with AI. I'm not talking about, let's assume for sake of discussion that all training materials are paid for. We're not worried about piracy there. And I know this is the perfect being the enemy of the good. But let's say there is no piracy. Let's say that they are ethically sourced LLM models. On the one hand, there is the moral importance, moral valence is, I don't know, the moral factor of displacing currently working artists in the biz and not using people. So you can argue about whether or not that's a protectionist for the buggy whip makers. But on the other side, and there is another side, because just like there was a structure in magic that had negative externalities, there is a structure in Hollywood that has negative externality. Hollywood as an engine has a reputation for chewing up young, attractive talent and then spitting them out, giving them nothing in exchange. And if you don't happen to want to be part of that machine, your story stays locked inside of you. So the dunk that made me feel good about Scam School was when I got an email from a kid in Bulgaria who said, I never would have been doing magic. He told me all these stories, didn't have access to all that stuff. There are stories locked in the minds of people who belong out in the world. And increasingly, this project, maybe it'll be garbage, I don't know. Maybe it'll be an insult to movies, or maybe this is the beginning of having a conversation of, in the trade-off, what are we gaining? What stories, what democratizing of the arts are we beginning at this point? Now that's about, I don't know if I just dropped a nuclear bomb or gave a clever thing for thought, or if I just wasted 5 minutes. No idea.
I don't think you wasted 5 minutes. I thought for some people, the magic analogy, your mileage may vary, I think. But where you got to in the end, I think, is exactly the problem. Yes, there are some people who are just going to dismiss this out of hand and say, it's all based on theft, so no large language models. Like, okay, there's no arguing with that, right? You either you either forgive that and move on, or you're okay with it, or we can't really proceed with the argument. The argument does become like, if I'm okay with these tools existing, but I don't want them to put people out of work, OpenAI making a $30 million animation movie is going to put people out of work. 30 people, replacing hundreds and hundreds of people. On the other hand, you could now have every one of those visual effects artists that is on the credits of movies potentially making their own movie, and doing it better than you and I with the same tools, right? Because
yes,
they understand how visual effects works. They are going to be able to take this tool and say, no, don't do that. Do this, because that introduces this weird effect on people. And they're not going to have to do the groundwork that they're used to, but they will be able to make a movie. And the question becomes, how many of those are worthwhile that get made that wouldn't have otherwise been made? How many people in those visual effects departments are like, yeah, but I don't want to do that, and then can't find something else that they can do, right? And that's always the transition. In the long term, historically, enough jobs are created by these kinds of tools that it all balances out. It's just a matter of, do you have a nice smooth transition like we did with computers in the 60s, where suddenly rooms and rooms of secretaries became rooms and rooms of admins and production assistants and things like that, project managers, product managers, titles that didn't exist before computers.
IT, regional managers,
all of that.
and so on.
Do you have a nice smooth gradient there? Or do you have the Industrial Revolution, where suddenly, workers are throwing their wooden shoes into the works because they're going to starve otherwise. Yeah, I don't think we're going to have people starving, but it might be a rougher transition than the computer one. I can't tell.
There also is an interesting side effect of, in corporate entities, they have the problem of, you take your best salesperson and then you pluck him. The reward for being the best salesman is to be plucked out of the job of selling and made into a manager. Mm-hmm. Now, this is somebody who did not go to management training school. He knows how to sell copiers or whatever, and suddenly he gets promotion. So I think there's also a little bit of anxiety of, let's say you've toiled for a long time, crafting leaves in the background of animated shows, and now all of a sudden you could do anything. And they're like, well, I don't want to do anything. I wanted to do the thing. So there are some people who want to be in a familiar space, but probably, you know what? This is a good time to remind people that we love your emails. Write us an email at cordkillers@gmail.com.
Yeah, because being able to make an animated film for $30 million is not something most of us are going to be able to do, but it will increase the number of animated films and the number of creatives who can get their vision turned into a film by more companies that can raise $30 million than can raise the billions of dollars that studios need to raise. We'll see. James Gunn posted on Blue Sky just the following: Man of Tomorrow in theaters, July 9th, 2027, with some art of Superman and Lex Luthor.
The responses that I saw immediately after that were basically, yeah, let's go, man. No pussyfooting around. Now, of course, it's convenient when your pet project happens to be beloved by the guy in charge of the entire cinematic universe because he's you. But on the other hand, strike while the iron's hot, man.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting, let's just give a solid release date. No teaser, no presentation at CinemaCon, just here we go on Blue Sky. Done. Also, I have heard a lot of people, just total side note, say well, when Blue Sky starts making news, I'll take it seriously. So here you go. Amazon announced that it has cast Sophie Turner. You might know her as the woman who played Sansa Stark in Game of Thrones. Sophie Turner has been cast as Lara Croft in the Prime Video Tomb Raider series that's being developed. Filming starts January 19th. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is the creator of this version of Tomb Raider. She is the writer, executive producer, and co-showrunner.
I can't speak to how good or not good this will be for Tomb Raider or how good or not good of a piece of art it will be. I will say it is a brilliant move for the agent of Sophie Turner. I mean, her previous character, her best known character, was essentially a perpetual damsel in distress.
Yeah,
outside of a few
as
cool
a
moments.
Wife of a Jonas brother. I'm sorry. You meant as Sansa Stark. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. But as Sansa Stark. And so instead, putting her in a action-y role, I think will be really good for her career.
Also, towards the end of Game of Thrones, they started to give Sansa a little more to do.
Sure.
And Sophie started to show a little bit of what she could do in that kind of role. So I could see it.
Well, and they also, but mostly she was in a psychological game. She was a student of Peter Baelish.
Yeah. CNN is going to air Farm Aid live starting on the evening of September 20th. So you'll be able to watch Willie Nelson, Neil Young, John Mellencamp, Dave Matthews, Margot Price, etc. if you are interested in watching Farm Aid. It's like Coachella, but on CNN and country.
Yeah. Man, how old is Willie now?
He's in his 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw him years ago and thought, this has got to be one of his last performances. But no.
He just toured with Bob Dylan.
I know.
This past within this year, Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he's 92 years old as of April. He has the same birthday as my sister. Just, a few years earlier. Activision has signed a deal with Paramount to make a Call of Duty movie. They don't give us any other information, not which Call of Duty it'll be based on, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, Activision, Paramount, going to make a Call of Duty movie.
Yeah, that's a weird dog, I don't know, snake eating its tail. I mean, Call of Duty was originally basically Saving Private Ryan as a video game. And so it's a movie made into a video game, made it back into a movie.
Saving Private Duty. The Paper has been renewed for a second season, which kind of surprised me after our last conversation where we're like, ooh, they decided to release them all at once. That doesn't sound good. But yeah, one day before the September 4th premiere, The Paper was renewed. So we'll get a second season if you were holding off on jumping in because you were worried it would get cut off.
Yeah, that is, I think, a smart play. I'd be curious. We'll never know the behind the scenes machinations. It could be as simple as just, scheduling. We got so much attention bandwidth that we need to saturate appropriately.
Yeah, or some data was like, this kind of show does do better, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. Do you want a tiny spoiler of how The Paper begins? I haven't actually watched it. I just read about it.
Sure.
It begins in Scranton at the warehouse with the documentary crew showing up trying to find the folks from the office, and they're no longer there. The branch office has been closed down.
Oh, that's great.
And so they go to figure out what happened, and the venture capitalists that bought Dunder Mifflin also own a paper in Toledo. And so they head there because one member of Dunder Mifflin was transferred there, aka Oscar. That's why Oscar's at The Paper.
That's cute. That's cute. And also it's close enough to the reality where it's like, various cast members have gone on to have various kind of careers, and really it's kind of a roll of the dice. Any of the minor characters in The Office, that you follow.
Netflix has released the trailer for the third in the Knives Out series to be called Wake Up Dead Man. It will have a limited release in theaters, just like Glass Onion. So you'll get to watch it in theaters November 26th. It'll be in theaters exclusively for 2 weeks and then arrive on Netflix December 12th.
This looked fun in the trailer. And I could have done without them hammering me over the head that it's like, get it? It's a classic locked room mystery. I was like, okay, well, you clearly did that. I don't know why you had to tell me at the end, but that's fine.
So clearly it's not a locked room mystery. Is that what they're trying to get us to be surprised by?
You know what? I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I started to get suspicious. YouTube got 17.3 million people worldwide to watch the opening NFL game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers in Sao Paulo, Brazil, streamed free on YouTube, September 5th. You didn't have to subscribe to YouTube Premium. You didn't have to subscribe to YouTube TV. You didn't have to subscribe to NFL Sunday Ticket. All you needed was a YouTube account. 16.2 million of the average minute audience came from the US. So that means 1.1 million came from 230 other countries in the rest of the world. If you want a comparison, Amazon averaged 13.2 million viewers per game for its Thursday night football. This was a Friday night, but that's kind of the closest you can get to a weekday NFL game. So they got 3 million more, basically, by doing it on YouTube for free.
Yeah, I think that it is a testament to, when we were talking about branding existing to reduce friction, it is simply a less friction experience to remember to go to YouTube. Is a thing happening with video that's either live or curated? YouTube is a paywall free way to get there. Whereas Amazon, you have to think, oh, do I have or am I a member of, and do I have to do a login and all that stuff?
I was originally surprised that it didn't have more than 16.2 million domestically. But then Rob Dunwood, who's a big NFL fan, on Daily Tech News Show, pointed out, he's like, you don't get people to watch the NFL on a weekday anyway. Right. You've got a certain amount of pro football fans and they all watched. Right. So it's not like making it available on YouTube turned people magically into NFL fans. I'm like, okay, that's actually a pretty good point. He's like, you kind of got everybody who's free on a Friday night. He's like, Friday night's busy. People go out. There's high school football, for like super football fans who have kids.
Ooh, Tom, no, this is great because what this implies is there's an opportunity for what economists call a natural experiment, because I'll bet that the NFL has enough long-term big data to know what the expected watch interest is for that game, for this point of the season, for these two teams. They probably have all things being equal, it should generate this number. And anything less than that is directly attributable to friction, whether it's technical friction, whether it's brand confusing friction. That's interesting.
Yeah. And they may have had to do it on Friday, and that could have led to the YouTube decision, right? It's like, ooh, nobody wants to broadcast this on Friday, and it would be behind a paywall no matter what. So let's put it on YouTube. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. All right, let's get to the buried treasure.
Most people want to know why they suddenly got rich.
Buried treasure.
Mr. Brushwood. Buried Treasure is a place for us to talk about something we've been watching we think would be of interest to the audience. What you been watching?
Dude, I finally watched the second half of episode 1 of Alien Earth, which led the next day to watching episode 2 of Alien Earth. Not going to lie, I cried a little bit.
Really?
In episode
like
2.
that.
It was great. It is great. Everything that we've been talking for, I think this is spoiler free. Remember, we watched the trailer, and one of the plot points is that the whole world's been divvied up around 5 corporations. I was like, ooh, it'd be neat if they did a bunch of Great Houses, Game of Thrones stuff. Guess what they do, Tom? The Weyland Yutani is the ship that 9/11'd into the skyscraper owned by Prodigy Corporation or whatever. And because they get to play, because of licensing, FX, Hulu, Disney ownership stuff, they're able to get some of those feelsy stuff with Peter Pan themed names and Neverland, kids who are estranged, who come together, adult bodies with 12-year-olds in the brains. You get to see little acting games that they're extra fidgety or they're kind of like, yeah, I miss baths. I always hated them, but now I don't need them or whatever. Like it's fusion. This is also, I believe, not a spoiler, but the side plot that gets like 7 minutes of screen time is pretty much, it just checks in with a ship that's not technically the Nostromo, but it feels like the Nostromo. And you just get enough to get like, you get it. The movie Alien, it happened on this one. And then just giant chunks of that movie, not bothering to show you. It respects you so much. I cannot wait for you to start watching it. It's great.
Alien Earth. Okay. And which service is it on anymore?
It's on Hulu.
It's on Hulu. So I can watch it on Disney Plus too.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, this weekend, MTV's Video Music Awards, or as we call them in this household, the Attendance Awards. If you show up, if you've been invited, and especially if you performed, you get an award.
Oh, that's hilarious.
MTV VMAs are very much about the performances. The Grammys have kind of become this, but the Grammys actually have a vestige of there was like 45 minutes between awards at one point. Anyway, it's about good performances. It's good times, good fun music. The Daily Music Headlines folks did a live stream watch along where we chatted about it as we were watching it. But for this show, the interesting thing is that the VMAs were shown on CBS, the broadcast network, for the first time. Last year, they spread it around all the MTV networks. So, VH1, and they also had it on Paramount Plus. This year, they added CBS. Adding CBS grew the audience 42% from last year's airing. So just having it on Channel 4 or 5 or whatever it is in your market, brought the audience up by 42%, beating Sunday Night Football. People were just ready to watch some people perform music, and there was an Ozzy Osbourne tribute on there. There was a lot of Vanguard awards. So like Busta Rhymes performed and got a Vanguard award. That's kind of like your heritage award kind of thing. I thought it was really fascinating that they had that audience growth by adding a broadcast network.
Yeah, well, especially because if I'm not mistaken, Tom, the VMAs were conceived because a cable channel wanted a Grammy-like alternative to lend legitimacy to their cable channel shenanigans. And so then, I guess we're yet another kind of like Call of Duty, a movie becomes a video game, becomes a movie.
Well, yeah, and adding the VMAs to Paramount Plus last year was the thing. I'm like, okay, that's what's going to bring in the new audience. And it brought in some. I did not expect over-the-air CBS to bring in that many more people to this.
Well, I think it speaks to that same friction thing, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, if I told you find the VMAs, you used to know it was definitely on MTV. But
right.
Now I don't even know how I'd find it.
How do you get MTV, right? Is that on Paramount Plus? Which one of those services is it on? Do I have to host Cordkillers for 11 years to be able to keep this straight? The answer is yes.
Guess what? Even if you do, you still might not know.
Sometimes she's still confused. One thing that was odd, I was watching this. I had the ability to watch it on MTV through DirecTV Stream. I had the ability to watch it on Paramount Plus, and I had the ability to watch it on over the air, over an antenna. My antenna obviously had the least lag. It was like living in the future to look at the TV that had the antenna on, but you didn't get to see the pre-show. And there were performances in the pre-show because CBS was showing a football game. The football game ended in time, but they kept doing the post-show, which made me wonder, is that why they got the 42% lift? People who are watching that football game just stuck around, right? The classic lead-in scenario.
That is that's another good design nudge with outsized effects is we don't have the lead-in effect. What a fascinating set of metagames.
Yeah.
This is... Tom, I'm really glad we do this show. we thought that the story would be over when cable died. I think the story's just begun.
No, exactly. The other thing that was interesting is on Paramount Plus, it had a slide for that football game, and it had it to watch live, and it had a slide for MTV VMAs. And when I first clicked the MTV VMA button, it took me to the pre-show. Then I was like, I'm lagging behind a little. Let me see if I can get that to catch up, because I think I paused or something. I reload the page, I go back in, and when I click watch VMAs, it took me to the football postgame instead of to the pre-show. I could not get to the VMA pre-show from within Paramount Plus after that. I don't know why. I don't know if that was a common experience, but it lended more firepower to the idea that people watching that football stream probably just stuck around and then suddenly got the VMAs.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, folks, if you've got something we should be on the lookout for, please do email us. Our phone number is cordkillers at the gmail.com exchange. That's cordkillers at gmail.com. Brian, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It was really nothing. I mean,
it was something.
it was a team effort. I mean, yeah.
I am now more focused on writing my Free Tom newsletter since you talked about how folksy and homespun it was.
Oh, that's great. And plus also, let me just brag on it again. We've talked about this before. The big trend now that polish is cheap. And by the way, I'm now actively annoyed. It wasn't enough that I would write my Gmails and at the bottom it would say, hey, you want me to fix all that for you, boss? No, screw you. I wrote the words that I meant to write.
Yeah.
Now I get to the top line and it's like, hey, it looks like you're writing something. You want us to write it for you? No, I don't. I want authentic, folksy wisdom from boots on the ground humans like Tom Merritt.
Yeah, I went all the way to Oklahoma just to be as folksy as I possibly could.
Did you
2
really?
weeks ago. Well, I went there for a wedding, but I definitely worked that into like, Brian called this folksy. Well, guess what? I doubled down. I'm in Tulsa now. So yeah, if you want to get what's on my mind, what I'm doing, pictures of my dog, as well as links to all the stuff I talk about, podcasts I do, videos I do, and everything, Free Tom newsletter, freetomnewsletter.com. Let's scan the horizon.
Send a scanning to abort.
Scanning the horizon!
So Plex said in a post Monday that attackers gained access to a customer account information system and were able to access usernames, email addresses, hashed passwords, and authentication data. Zach Whittaker at TechCrunch was very unforgiving in his write-up of this, which I didn't quite understand. So I think he might know something he can't say because he was like, they didn't talk about how they hashed the passwords. They didn't talk about how these folks got in there. And I was like, you're right. Plex didn't do all the transparency that they could have done, but they did tell everybody. They urged all Plex users to change their passwords at plex.tv/reset and gave instructions on how to kick any devices that are signed into your account out, just in case somebody did get into your account and signed on with their own device. But they didn't change people's passwords for them, which sometimes in a breach like this, they do.
Yep. Tom, I think we're going to see more of this stuff. And you know that I am predisposed to a little bit of conspiracy thinking when it comes to corporations. But in this case, I have been watching very, very closely cybersecurity breaches and especially business email compromise, basically anything where it's the human that screws up. And I'm withholding some of this, but I've shared a little bit of it with you. I do perceive that up until now, humans have been very well-guarded sheep, and our technological fences have allowed humans to be very sheep-like in their behavior, and they have not been expected to think like a wolf and be defensive like a wolf. I am of the opinion that humans are not being trained correctly, fundamentally, and I guarantee you anytime that they don't disclose what this is, it is because there's a financial incentive to avoid the shame of saying a human clicked on a thing that they shouldn't, which is why increasingly, I don't know if I've told you, I'm booking cybersecurity training. And again, the fundamentals are all the same. I'm gonna spoil a little bit of my business plan here. In the early days, security awareness training was like defensive driving, right? It was a brand new idea for a thing. It's best practices of what to do with security. It's also top-down system too. We did a segment on DTNS talking about all this. That is not an effective way to train people for security. It should be bottom-up system one. They should be actively role-playing as both the deceiver and the deceived. That's the only way to internalize human wetware for defense threats. And as best I could tell, nobody's cracked doing it. So I'm actively moving into making more compelling training because the checklist is not very far of best practices. That's pretty simple to do. What's hard to do is to make it engaging, hands-on, and participatory in a fundamentally fascinating, interesting, fun way. If it helps to think of it this way, everyone has been doing defensive driving. I'm starting comedy defensive driving. And if you're interested, hit me up at brian@shua.com. I'm withholding fundamental key aspects of it that will be revealed as they get polished. But if you need to book somebody for cybersecurity awareness training, hit me up.
And in the short term, if you have a Plex account, change your password.
Yeah.
That's the least you can do. YouTube TV will carry C-SPAN's 3 channels on its base package starting this fall. C-SPAN also said that YouTube TV will sponsor the network's coverage of America 250 celebration, and C-SPAN's presence on YouTube will be boosted. C-SPAN's 3 channels will also be on Hulu plus live TV. So now they're on DirecTV, YouTube TV, Hulu plus live TV, which, as we talked about on a previous Cordkillers from your place, Brian, it was kind of a big goal for C-SPAN to get on these streaming services.
Yeah. So does this fundamentally answer the funding question? Certainly it handles the access. Because we were talking about how C-SPAN was supported by the carriage fees.
I interviewed Peter Kiley from C-SPAN for a DirecTV episode that will go up on Saturday. And Kiley said that, this is what they were after. They got the carriage fee, the couple of cents per person carriage fee from YouTube and Hulu. And so this is going to probably not solve all their financial problems. He didn't say that, but this goes a long way towards replacing the loss of 50 million subscribers as cable has dwindled over the past several decades.
Yeah, sorry about that. That was a side effect we didn't think of when we murdered cable.
We weren't thinking about C-SPAN when we pulled out the
cable
knife.
to look out there and imagine the rabbits, and we're like, see them rabbits, cable, and then 50 million subscribers.
And C-SPAN was behind us going, what have you done?
Yeah.
Stream East. I bet some of you know what that is. Stream East is one of the largest sports piracy platforms in the world. It has been shut down, according to the Alliance for Creativity and Entertainment, an anti-piracy group that is made up of folks from NBC Universal, Netflix, Disney, and others. Egyptian law enforcement carried out a sting on August 24th, which disrupted the platform's streaming infrastructure. And I bet, as some of you know, didn't actually eliminate every instance of someone calling itself Stream East. So if you look, you can probably still find something. Whether it's actually the original or not, I can't tell you.
When asked for comment, they said, "Yar."
Newsmax has filed an antitrust lawsuit in federal court against Fox News and, of course, its parent company, Fox Corporation, for engaging in, and I quote, an extensive and unlawful campaign to block competition in the market for right-leaning pay TV news, to which Fox said, we're fair and balanced. That's not us. Newsmax alleges that Fox requires cable companies to either not carry Newsmax or, if it does, carry less viewed Fox channels like Fox Business.
So starting with that practice, they do have a point. Let's say there's only so much bandwidth, and the more Fox News variations that are covered, that crowds out opportunities for Newsmax. However, if you back up again, the whole lawsuit is predicated on the idea that, well, I mean, obviously everyone has to have Fox News. It's a must have, and therefore it's unfair that they're crowding us out. I'm like, I question your first premise right there.
Yeah. Although, if you're a cable company, even in these declining times, Fox News probably makes a good, people may be more willing to cancel cable if they can't get Fox News. I looked at this and immediately thought, turnabout is fair play. Is it Fox News? Because Fox was the one that broke the monopoly that CNN had for the first decade of cable's life, where Ted Turner said, if you ever carry another 24-hour news network, we will pull TBS and we will pull any Turner network. And so Fox was the only one that could break that in the 90s. That's how we got Fox News in the first place.
Yeah.
Netflix's scene clipping feature called Moments.
Launched Fox News in
Hey, thanks, Gemini. New Netflix's scene clipping feature called Moments now lets you choose the start and end of a scene instead of choosing from predefined segments. After saving the clip, it'll live in your My Netflix tab for you to rewatch later, and of course, share on social media. And your followers can click on a post to be taken to a particular scene within the Netflix app. So just a little more precision in that feature.
I'll tell you what, I'm curious. There's in an age where we want to convey sentiments even faster than language permits. There was, like, for example, somebody, let's say somebody accuses a decision of happening very suddenly. And then meanwhile, what you want to convey is, no, it was not sudden at all. You might wish for that scene from Fletch where he talks about somebody dying suddenly, and he's like, no, he'd been dying for years. And he was like, well, but at the end it was very sudden. And it's like, well, no, he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And it's like, yeah, but like right at the end when he died, it was very sudden. Like, I love being able to respond with little vignettes, or you see that with the I think you should leave memes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If Netflix can, you can do a lot of those responses on YouTube, but you have to find grandfathered old clips that aren't precisely exactly tight. Whereas if Netflix can, above the license barrier, be able to allow people to sling memes at each other, that'd be huge.
Yeah, I think they're going to get in their own way because you have to go to Netflix to play it, right? But I guess you have to go to YouTube to play it in the other one, so maybe that's not so bad.
Yeah, but as long as you click on a thing and it instantly plays, that's the thing.
As long as they don't give you the login screen for Netflix. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Nielsen said that now that it has added streaming data from smart TVs to its main ratings, so you've had cable and broadcast, now streaming data gets put into the same rating, it's going to take longer. They're going to need a couple of days, 2 to 3 days, to come out with the definitive rating instead of the usual overnight. You'll still get overnight, but it will be labeled as preliminary.
This is very, very important because we've seen number degradation, by which I mean the authenticity of reported numbers. YouTube earlier this year changed what counts as a air quote view on their shorts to be more in line with Facebook and Instagram, which of course are garbage fake numbers. It's like if a video is mentioned, they count it as a view practically.
Yeah.
And so I think that this flight to quality is core to Nielsen's brand, and I think is a smart move.
And finally, Warner Brothers Discovery sued Dish for the same thing Disney did last week, making that one-day pass, that weekend pass, one-day pass feature where you could just watch ESPN for the weekend to see the college football games.
Finding out that nobody signed off on this just has me fascinated.
I know.
On how did they decide to roll these dice?
Dish was just like, I don't know. Let's go to court. let's get some eyeballs on Sling, whatever it takes. And Dish's response to this was very much like, this is really great for consumers. There was no like, we think our agreements do allow this sort of thing. It was just like, hey, but everybody loves it, right?
It's pretty rad though, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
exactly.
Opening up the doors of Walmart and say everything's free day without permission from Walmart, that is pretty rad.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the chatter.
Got mail.
We got an email from Rick in Orlando. Tom has got me very interested in Asian dramas on Viki and Netflix. My favorite C-drama, Chinese drama, of 2025 by far is a 2023 series on Viki called A Date with the Future. Focuses on an elite fire rescue team. The head firefighter rescues a high school girl in an earthquake, and she tracks him down 10 years later and pursues him. This series has spectacular special effects of the rescues, like fire, earthquakes, car crashes. The inevitable romance angle plays out nicely, but lots of drama along the way. Keep an eye on lead actress Ronan Zhang. Very talented. Check it out. Thank you, Rick. That's great. Per Brian's request, here's Anne's opinion on movie ownership. I do want the version I bought. Firstly, because I don't trust movie distribution companies to not completely remove access to something for their own good, like declaring a movie or show to be a loss and then digitally shredding it in order to lower their own taxes. By the time they've sold it, that probably wouldn't work, but I get your point. Secondly, because I don't want an altered version. Tom gave the example of Star Wars movies that George Lucas improved. Another example I have is an old Wallace and Gromit DVD I had that was stolen. When I replaced it, several pieces of music had been switched out for inferior versions. Copyright dispute, I assume. Those movies have never felt right to me ever again. As a result, any movie or show that I anticipate wanting to watch more than once because I enjoy it, I will buy on DVD or Blu-ray. The shenanigans of the big tech companies in the last year to appease those in power have shown me how fragile our status quo is. The analogy to video games is different, in my opinion. I have only a couple of times replayed a game. However, someone like me, but with a love of video games, may have similar stories of games that were ruined by a patch. I don't think the lawsuit will do diddly to change the power dynamics in this scenario, but until they remove the option to buy DVDs, and they will someday, that's my way of trying to control my destiny.
Yeah, Anne brings up a really good point. There was, I think it was Supernatural, that they only had broadcast licenses for a bunch of the classic rock music that they played.
Northern Exposure had a similar thing too.
Yeah, and then when you bought the version, they substituted generic stuff on there.
Yeah, that's why piracy is the best way to get the original version.
Well, I mean, that's
it's not legal or ethical, but it is the best way to get the original version.
It's a bummer, but it is a fact that the highest quality experience often involves piracy.
Yeah. And then Mark writes, I think I have come across a problem that may have become more prominent for people as they drop cable. I recently dropped YouTube TV after the new ESPN and Fox streamers came online and have been getting the local live broadcast stations from Paramount Plus and Fox One. That worked for a week. Then Comcast apparently changed my IP address, and those apps determine location solely by IP address. I live in Connecticut in the Hartford television market, but Comcast changed me to an IP address with a location set as Danbury, Connecticut, which is in the New York television market. So I'm stuck only being able to watch the New York CBS and Fox station. There does not seem to be a way to set my location manually or with my phone like YouTube TV does. I imagine explaining this to Comcast support is going to be exasperating, so I haven't tried yet. I tried NordVPN and ExpressVPN. Express has servers in Bridgeport, Connecticut, but that is still in the New York City market. So do you have any other ideas? I couldn't find a way to request a different IP in the Xfinity app. Maybe one of your listeners knows of a VPN with servers in Hartford. By the way, I did the math, and adding ESPN and Fox One allowed me to drop YouTube TV and save $60 a month.
That's an interesting problem, and that's an unfortunate artifact that it's on the customer to make enough squeaky wheel noises that it gets fixed.
Have you tried Stream East? No, I'm just kidding. This is
Tom's gotten loose over the years, man. For those of you just joining us, 15 years ago, Tom would not approve of the way today Tom is talking.
No, he's wagging his finger from 15 years away. I think this is an edge problem. I don't think it happens to a lot of people percentage-wise, but I bet there's hundreds, if not thousands, probably in Connecticut. So you might want to ask some friends and neighbors if they're having similar problems. I know it sounds painful, but you probably should go through the motions of calling Comcast and explaining like, hey, why this IP address? I have an IP address that puts me like way farther east than I am. It has never caused me a problem, but every once in a while I'll get so we see that you're in this area of Los Angeles. So we've assumed this is your zip code. I'm like, yeah, that's not my zip code. So this is something that happens on various levels a lot, where they just give you an IP address that's not. In fact, one time my cable went down, and for 2 weeks I had an IP address that was like 75 miles away because I think they were just routing me through a different data center.
What an interesting edge case, because almost always a VPN, when it's used in this environment, it is to subvert the terms of service.
Right.
But in this case, it would be to correct the terms of service.
And if he was in a different market, if he was on the other side of this, it'd be easy to find a New York VPN, right? Mm-hmm. Not a problem. And he's done. But apparently Hartford, the market is small enough. Not a lot of VPNs locate their servers in Hartford. So yeah, if anybody has a suggestion for Mark, give us an email, cordkillers@gmail.com. Our website is cordkillers.com. That is our email address, cordkillers@gmail.com. And we are live at twitch.tv/Night Attack and youtube.com/Modern Rogue Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. I reckon we'll talk to you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.